So you've got some money to invest. In fact, you've got about £500 to invest, and you're now wondering, what should I be investing my money in? So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 ways that you can actually invest £500. But before we go on, I should say that I am not a financial advisor, so I am not telling you what to invest in. This is really for entertainment purposes only, so make sure you are doing your research and your due diligence. Okay, I'm excited now. Let's talk about how I can invest my money. So the first way that you could potentially invest £500 is actually investing through the stock market. Now, this is something that I tend to do every single month, and if you do have £500, or even if you have something small like £50, you can still get started. Now, if you're interested in investing in the stock market, there are potential different ways that you can do it. So one way, for example, could be you investing in individual companies. So let's say that I wanted to buy a few shares of Apple stock, for example, or McDonald's or Coca-Cola. I could literally do that, and if I had £500, then you could potentially do that with individual companies, obviously depending on the share price. Oh, I didn't know I could invest in Apple. Well, I guess that's probably better than just buying the new iPhone all the time. But as an alternative, you could also choose to invest in a basket of different companies. So as an example, I could choose to invest in the S&P 500, which can basically be known as the top 500 companies in the US. Or for example, the FTSE 100, which is basically like the top 100 companies in the UK. Now, the one thing I would say is ideally when I'm investing through the stock market, I would want to be consistently doing it every single month if I can. So depending on how much you have, if you've only got £500 to start, that's also fine. But what you might want to do is think about actually investing every single month as well, and figuring out how much you would want to invest. And then also depending on what you invest in as well. So for example, would you rather invest in an individual company, or would you rather invest in index funds or ETFs? That's really going to depend on, number one, your personal goals and your strategy. And it's also going to depend on your risk tolerance as well, because one is probably going to have slightly higher risk compared to the other, but you're probably also going to want to think about the level of returns you get as well. So there are a couple of questions that you might want to ask yourself. The one thing I would say is, of course, make sure you are doing your research. And if you're a complete beginner, I do actually have a video talking through how you can get started in investing in the stock market. So of course, I'll be sure to link that up here for you and in the description below. Now, personally, when I'm actually investing in the stock market, that is very much a long-term goal. So I see myself as a long-term investor, and I think most people that actually do want to become investors will have that long-term mentality. So for me, I would only be investing my money if I didn't need it for the next 5 years, for example. And I'm talking 5 years as an absolute minimum. Really, I'm probably going to be looking to keep that money invested for at least 10 to 20 years. You're also going to need to choose your platform as well. So basically, who are you going to be giving your money to? Now, there are currently a range of different platforms that you can choose. So for example, I tend to use Trading 212, and I use FREETRADE as well. So if you're interested in any of them, make sure you're doing your research first, but I will include those links in the description below for you, as you do get free shares. Although I should say with Trading 212, I believe there is still a waiting list, so it's really going to depend on what platform you choose. But there are also other platforms out there. So for example, I'm a massive fan of Vanguard. I think especially if you're only looking for ETFs or index funds, then Vanguard could be a good option. And then there are also others like Hargreaves Lansdown and AJ Bell as well. So just make sure you're doing your research and choose which one is best for you. But essentially, you could get started with £500 in the stock market. And if you're liking this video so far, then feel free to give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel. Plus, it's free. So the second way that I think you could potentially invest £500 is actually investing through real estate. And so here I'm usually talking about like property. Now, you might be thinking I'm completely crazy, because what property are you going to get for £500? Are you sure, Auntie V? £500 doesn't seem like a lot of money to buy property, at least in the UK. Well, in this case, you can actually invest in something called a REIT, and that stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. So what this essentially means is that rather than you actually going out to buy the property and of course maintain the property and become the landlord and all of that, you can actually choose to invest in a company that essentially will own that real estate and deals with all the maintenance and anything like that, so you don't have to. And so essentially, it's like you pooling your money together with other investors, and then you basically invest in that company who then owns that property. And so rather than you getting a buy to let, for example, and then having rent as your income, what you would essentially be doing is actually receiving dividends from that REIT instead. And again, with these REITs, these will be on the stock exchange as well. So like you being able to invest in individual companies, for example, or index funds and ETFs, you could potentially do this with a REIT as well. So if you are interested in property, but you're not interested in maintaining it, or you don't really have the capital for it, then a REIT is something that you can potentially invest in. Yeah, that could be an option for me, because I do not want to have to deal with maintenance. You could also invest in an ETF that has a collection of different REITs as well. So again, that's probably going to depend on your goals and your risk tolerance, but that is also an option. But again, REITs aren't going to be for everyone, so do make sure you are doing your own research as well. So the third way you could potentially invest £500 is actually investing in yourself. I mean, I do tend to hear this term, so what do you mean by investing in yourself? Now, when I'm talking about this, this, I'm actually talking about really starting to build your own knowledge. So whether that's about personal finance or personal development, you could actually use that money to essentially invest in your own knowledge. So for example, you could potentially buy books with that, and also linked in the description below are my favorite books, so books that I really think could potentially help if you are on this personal finance journey, so definitely check that out. You could also invest in things like magazines that really do build your knowledge. So as an example, I tend to have a property magazine that I usually pay for every quarter. You could use the money to maybe go on different network events, so this could obviously be online or it could be offline, hopefully after the pandemic, or you could use the opportunity to invest in a membership club. So for example, I'm part of something called the Financial Joy Academy, and this is something that I've mentioned a couple of times before, but essentially what it is, it's sort of like a membership club that's hosted by Ken and Mary from The Humble Penny, and that includes things like group coaching calls, you've got accountability partners, you've got different courses included, and you've got a Facebook group where you can be a part of a community. So it's something that I definitely enjoy, and if you are interested in joining Financial Joy Academy, then of course I will leave a link in the description below for you where you can actually get 15% off using my link. And the reason why I say investing £500 in yourself could potentially help is really just so that you can have that streamlined approach, and then also you can actually have the ability to make some smart financial decisions as well. So that is definitely something that I have done in the past and I will continue to do, because I do think one of the best things you can do is invest in yourself. So the fourth way that I think you could potentially invest £500 is actually investing in your own online business. Now this is something where I've potentially just started, and I've been doing this for over a year now, but you could potentially make some money by starting an online business. Now I should say again, this is not a get rich quick scheme. It's important to know that growing a business is going to take time. Now the reason why I say that you could potentially invest £500 into starting your own business is because that business can then help you to generate more income so that you can actually reach other financial goals. So whether that's investing more, saving more, or even paying off your debt, you could potentially use that side hustle, for example, to actually fulfill your goals. So with that £500, for example, you can use that to start a blog so that you can buy your domain and maybe your hosting site. You could maybe even invest in email marketing software. You could also potentially start a YouTube channel, so you might want to buy like a tripod, maybe you want to buy a camera and lights, and of course if you're looking for equipment, then I've got that linked in the description below for you. But I should also say that you don't actually have to get started on YouTube with like a fancy camera and any of that stuff. Really and truly, I just started with my iPhone, and then once I got used to it, that's when I really started to invest in other pieces of equipment. So it's really going to depend on just how comfortable you are and what you want to do, but that is potentially an option. Yep, I've got my tripod and my phone. I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and who knows, if you decide to go through the online business route, you might find that that's actually something you want to do full time. So it's definitely something that I would recommend, but remember, you're going to have to put some work in because it is not easy. And that's also partly why I'm a part of Financial Joy Academy, because it really helps you give you the steps to actually starting your own online business and building a personal brand too. So the fifth way I think you could potentially invest £500 is actually investing in niche courses. Now again, this is pretty much linked to the previous point, but if you invest in specific courses, this could really help you when you're trying to generate income, as an example. So again, if you're looking to start an online business, you might decide to either buy a membership club, or if you're starting an online business, rather than joining a membership club, you might decide to actually buy a specific course. So maybe you buy a course that specializes in sales, for example, or digital marketing. Maybe you want to start a service-based business. So as an example, I know I've mentioned a couple of times before, but I decided that I wanted to start a service-based business this year. So I actually bought a course that would help me to launch my own services. However, the one thing I would say though, guys, is make sure you are doing your research, because not all courses are created equally. There are some very, very good courses and they will have a lot of value and transformation. However, there are going to be some courses which honestly aren't great. So make sure you are looking at reviews, for example. And the one thing I would say is, if you do come across courses that are telling you you're going to be rich quickly, and I'm talking like within the next day or a couple of months, so what about investing in those courses that tell me I can make 6 figures in a week? Then you maybe want to be a little bit hesitant about that. Now, the next thing I think you could potentially invest £500 in is to actually again invest in yourself by paying off debt. Now, the reason why I decided to include this is because I don't think a lot of people realize that you could essentially get a guaranteed return on your money if you are able to pay off your debt. And so when people come to me telling me, oh, should I invest my money in the stock market or should I pay off my credit card debt? Guys, you can get a guaranteed return by paying off your credit card debt. And the reason why this is so important is because you also need to look at the level of interest rate as well. So for example, if you're able to get a 10% return in the stock market, well then that's great. But if you're paying 15 to 20% to your credit card company, well then essentially you're actually worse off. Yeah, I mean, I probably should pay off my credit card debt. So for me, depending on the level of debt you have, so for example, if you have high interest debt, like maybe your car loan, or you've got credit card debt or personal loans, anything like that, I would probably want to invest in myself by actually paying off that debt, because I know that I will get a guaranteed return. Because again, again, when you invest your money, you're not always guaranteed to get that return. Now, again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not telling you what to do, but when it comes to your finances and if you've got a level of debt versus investing, for example, this is potentially something that you will want to question. But if you're looking for a guaranteed return, then potentially you could use that £500 to pay off your debt. Now, if you're still confused about whether you should be paying off your debt or investing, I do actually have a video that talks about that in a bit more detail. So of course, I will link that up here for you and in the description below. So if you like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, how else would you invest £500? I do post every Tuesday and Friday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.